The month of March ushers in the spring, and this year, March of 2021, begins with the goddess of love in her milk of human kindness sign, compassionate Pisces. Venus is glowing with love, well, for everyone, unconditionally, and she's going to do that for us from February 26th to March 20th of 2021. And March 20th is the day of the Spring Equinox when the sun enters Aries. I'm Judith Royal, and this is your Astrology Weather Forecast for the new moon, March 13th, in the beautifully compassionate sign of Pisces. This is really a wonderful time for us to release regrets and resentments if we turn to the love and compassion that we will be inspired with from Venus. So your choice and mine is to accept and resonate with this unconditionally empathic love for mankind, or to resist and deny it. But either way, it will show up in the decisions that we make in your daily life, that you make in your daily life. So just as I was about to begin recording this forecast, the maintenance man in my building began vacuuming the hallway outside my door. Not wanting that sound as my background noise, my knee-jerk egoic reaction was to be irritated and to decide that it's just like Murphy's Law and I'm just a victim of the circumstances. But I also have the choice to see this as a gift of service. I mean, after all, someone's making the world a better place for me. Well, you have to know I have the moon in Virgo, so I'm big on cleanliness. And actually vacuuming is one of my favorite chores. So yes, that's sad. And I hear my son's voice going, "Mom, get a life." But nevertheless, on the world stage is where we see the archetypal energies of our planetary orbits and vibrations, and we see them there actually in action. So I always watch that, and recently there have been so many women on the world stage that inspire awe and wonder in me, a lot of inspiration and admiration. So making the headlines once again on March 10th was the New York Attorney General Letitia James. Now, this woman has a love of the law that is clearly her destiny. Of course, I did her chart, and she has her Sun, Venus, and the North Node of Destiny in the sign of Libra. So that confers a love of peace and harmony in relationships. But sitting side by side to that, right next door, in the 10th house of her career, is this powerhouse lineup in Scorpio. And that gives her this witchy woman persona with a penetrating insight and really a relentless drive for the truth. She will not stop until she gets to the bottom line. So she has this gift also there of clear seeing, of a perfectly honed foresight. And this makes her Scorpion sleuthing skills absolutely extraordinary. So Letitia is a woman who has no fear of the dark. She has no fear of ruthless power mongers hiding there, perhaps with their tax returns hidden behind their back like Al Capone or Donald Trump. I believe she is we could call her a change agent for unmasking the truth, definitely, and even for unmasking people who are not really wanting to be unmasked. But what I'm trying to say is that right now, in the astrological weather in the cosmos. This is an invitation. Like Letitia's actions are an invitation for us to unmask, for us to unmask and take our own penetrating and really necessary look at some intense feelings we've been hiding, perhaps behind our own mask of acceptability. I used to have a mask of smiles that I wore even when my heart was broken. So these are the ways we think we're camouflaging our less desirable traits. That is, they're less desirable in our own judgment of ourselves. But the truth is, in fact, we're hiding our own self from our own selves. Because we wear that mask when we look in our own mirror, right? I'm talking to you about this because I'm going to say gear up because powerful Pluto, aka Hades, the lord of the underworld, is going to spend 4 full months apparently motionless at 28 degrees of Capricorn. In other words, all of March, April, May, and June of 2021, he will be there. From our perspective on Earth, he appears to be standing still. In truth, of course, that's the optical illusion that we call retrograde. And Pluto does, in fact, turn retrograde in the middle of that on April 27th, 2021. So the effect on us, it's like a laser beam, sort of drilling through rock and dirt to reach the wellspring below. If we choose to let ourselves resonate with this energy, it means it's a good time for us to drill deep into our memories, which is really a courageous act. It's an act of bravery, really, because most of us think that we have in our past sort of these long list of traumas and this kind of bad stuff. Obviously, we have a lot of good stuff in there too, but it's where most of us have buried our shame. Now, I know from practice and my personal experience, and most of you do too, that in truth, what you'll find in the past, in your memories, can be only love, because that's the only thing that's real. The rest are those Darth Vader dark illusions, the lies we tell ourselves. The truth is, what's there is love or the cry for help for love. Everything else is a childish nightmare that we didn't know was an illusion. One way you can think of your astrology, or astrology in general, is that it's your Akashic record. It's like a celestial rhizome from which all life springs. We find there in the mythological story of the planet's namesake the archetypes that are in all of our collective consciousness. So let me give you a fun example of, if there can be fun with Pluto, of how the Pluto archetype shows up on our world stage. Often we find these archetypes in our popular movies, etc. So this one this month reminds me of this character, Dr. Joseph Rosenberg, and it was in a movie called Love at First Bite. That was done in 1979, played by Richard Benjamin. And in it, Rosenberg, we have this one scene where he has finally caught up with Dracula, who is asleep in his coffin in the daytime. And as Rosenberg stands back to enjoy this moment of triumph over this monster who has stolen his girlfriend, he says, "This is the epitome of a man taking charge of his own life." And with that, he strikes the match and sets the coffin on fire. Now imagine that you've finally cornered the illusory monsters of your own personal nightmares. You've caught them and brought them into the broad daylight where they are powerless. And you light the fire. It's an alchemical fire of change. It's in fact the truth. And there you set your own self free. You burn through the veil of illusion. Between now and the new moon in Pisces, March 13th, it's an excellent time for you to stop and say, well, to ask yourself, who played the role of Dracula or Darth Vader or Oz in your life? Have you lit the match of your own magnificence, of your own power? It's the same thing as asking yourself, will I now refuse to play with littleness? Will I refuse to be afraid, like a child who believes there's a monster under the bed? I mean, remember that monster archetype has many, many masks, all the same demon. Whether it looks like Darth Vader or Dracula or Oz, they all symbolize the faces of fear. They symbolize your delusions and lies you've told yourself about your own powerlessness, your own belief in your littleness. So the last days of winter, now until March 20th, is the evolutionary time of excavating the burial grounds of Pisces of the 12th house. The new moon on the 13th of March is the final hour. It's like the finishing up of an entire year. It's a wonderful time to clean up coffins, right? To lift those lids and release those ghosts into the light where you'll see them just disappear, right? All of this is for the purpose of preparing the ground for new life. And if you do, you've cleared the decks for 3 days that are really special. They're balsamic days, and they're days of prophecy, the last 3 days of winter, March 17th to the 20th. Because if we then put our ear to the ground on March 20th, if we listen with our intuition, we can hear the hissing as the veil of fear just burns off and hatred dissolves into ash. We're setting fire to old, even ancient, erroneous ideas, many unexamined beliefs about our own helplessness and what we sometimes tell ourselves is a lack of power to change our own lives. But we're setting fire to those lies that we've been telling ourselves because you've heard me say many times, time's up. You've been on the world stage, big signs, time's up. Well, time's up mainly for playing with littleness, for acting as if you are not a magnificent being of light. You know, many of us have become accustomed to acting small, as if we were victims, belittling ourselves, belittling our own dreams, belittling each other. But I ask you to join me now in setting a powerful intention for this new moon on March 13th. I've already been practicing mine because I've done this exercise with my moon dance group where I have all these lunar beautiful goddesses. So let me share mine with you. Mine is that I want to grow up to be like Amanda Gorman. I want to show up. I want to show up in dazzling bright yellow that shines like gold in the noonday sun. That's my intention that I'm going to repeat as often as I can remember, hopefully every day, until I start to see it manifest. And then I'll say it some more. And maybe I step up on a soapbox, or I just step up on my own 2 feet, or a carpenter's ladder. And those are all vastly unlike the dais that Amanda Gorman claimed for the presidential inauguration, but no matter. It's her voice that I want to emulate. So confident and thoughtful and delivered like a thunderclap. So I promise you that by March 28th, you have an excellent chance to know the true meaning of stepping into your own power. So let me remind you of what inspired my intention. It was actually this foretold by this young black girl on January 20th of 2021. And here's just one stanza. The new dawn blooms as we free it, for there is always light. If only we are brave enough to see it, if only we are brave enough to be it. Deliver your own intention, sort of like the da-da-da-dum in Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. You know, he did that so he could rouse his distracted and rather irreverent audience, you know. It's sort of like woke music. Keep in mind that the ego, the monkey mind that we all have, is not going to like this. As soon as we take another step towards the light, closer to the light, it starts screaming, you know. But the screaming and how loud the ego's voice is, this certainly doesn't mean power or strength. In fact, yelling is sort of a puff up, you know. It's the ego inflating itself like a cheap balloon. Or as Shakespeare said, all sound and fury signifying nothing. So that voice is going to maybe get a little louder as you move towards your own truth closer and closer. Astrologically, the prediction is that we will have the pandemic behind us by April, and we will, maybe not this year, perhaps next, we will see our own version of the roaring 2020s. But in the meantime, on the road ahead, we are going to have Neptune, the visionary planet, the ruler of Pisces, walking along, believe it or not, with that lord of the underworld. So here we have the visionary planet with the planet of transformation. And this gives us this lovely spiritual ladder, this spiritual ability for transcendence that at its highest vibration supports our mission of bringing a higher level of consciousness to humanity itself. It's the energy of regeneration in which we feel motivated and called to be of service to others in the name of universal love and compassion. A real treat is there for us March 15th, when Messenger Mercury bows his head in prayer as he sails into the waters and that dreams are made of in oceanic Pisces. This is the energy where prophets are gently awakened with a quill in hand and the book of life opened to page 2021. It's a perfect time for creative visualization and for delving into the tarot. I like the Thoth tarot, or just exploring the cosmos, because Mercury in Pisces has that elf-like quality of deep listening, often from behind the scenes. like you and me, standing in the wings of the theater, trying to muster our bravery and our courage to go out there and speak your truth. For me, it is to remember that love steers the stars and is the only power in the universe because it is the power that's within us. So thanks for joining me and for listening. And if you would like to get in touch with me for your own individual astrology, you can always reach me by email at judith@judithroyal.com. Bye for now.